Zounds! Gadzooks!
Remember when the British could swear, without actually swearing? No four-letter words, no angry shouting, just polite frustration, wrapped in charm and a cup of tea in hand. These weren't curses, they were character. Today, we're rewinding the clock to revisit the lost art of the gentle insult. The kind of phrases that once echo through every kitchen, pub, and workplace across the country. From a muttered blimey when you stubbed your toe, to a theatrical crikey when the milk went off. They were the verbal equivalent of a sigh and a shake of the head. So, hit the kettle on, because we're diving into 11 forgotten British swear words that deserve a glorious comeback. This is swearing, but with a stiff upper lip.
Zounds!
There's a strange and beautiful art to the British way of getting cross, isn't there? Long before the internet and its endless stream of colourful language, we had our own unique vocabulary for when things went a bit pear-shaped. It was a language of polite fury, of gentle disbelief, of saying absolutely everything without really saying anything at all. A sort of PG-rated rage, if you will. These weren't swear words designed to cause a scandal. They were little verbal cushions for life's bumps and scrapes. They were the sounds of a nation collectively stubbing its toe, burning the toast, or dropping a perfectly good biscuit into a cuppa. So, let's take a little trip back, shall we? Back to a time when a raised eyebrow and a well-placed blimey could stop you in your tracks. These are the forgotten British swear words that weren't really swear words at all. Let's start with number 1. The absolute titan of British surprise.
Oh my god.
Now, technically, it's a shortened version of the old oath, God blind me. But of course, no one ever meant it literally. It wasn't a curse. It was more like a verbal gasp, a puff of astonished air. It was the noise your dad made when he tore open the quarterly gas bill, his eyes widening as he stared at the numbers as if they were written in ancient hieroglyphics. Blimey, Brenda, have we been heating the entire street? It was the sound of him seeing your school report, a single, sharp exhale of, well, let's call it disappointed wonder. It was proper, good old-fashioned British shock, served up without a hint of genuine scandal. Just a simple, effective, all-purpose expression of amazement. Then we have number 2, its slightly chirpier cousin, crikey, where blimey was for genuine shocks. Crikey was for life's smaller, more charming mishaps. It was the perfect little word for that heart-sinking moment when you watched your digestive biscuit surrender to your tea, slowly sinking to a murky, crumbly grave at the bottom of the mug. Crikey. You'd say it with a sigh when you saw next door a shiny new Ford Cortina gleaming on their driveway, a little note of envy mixed with admiration. It had a certain bounce to it, didn't it? Crikey was the kind of word that had the magical ability to make even your own mistakes sound rather quaint and harmless. A verbal shrug, that said. Oh, well, that's happened then. And now, for number 3. A name that echoed through British households with the force of a minor explosion. Gordon Bennett. And yes, before you ask, it's named after a real person. Gordon Bennett Jr. was a larger-than-life, stupendously wealthy American newspaper publisher in the Victorian era. He was a playboy of legendary proportions, known for his wild parties, scandalous antics, and a habit of doing things so outrageous, his name simply became a stand-in for utter disbelief. He was the sort of chap who'd erase carriages through New York in the dead of night. So when your granddad shouted, Gordon Bennett, because the dog had run off with the Sunday roast, he was unknowingly channeling the spirit of a 19th century maverick. Only in Britain, truly, could a man become a mild-mannered swear word simply for having far too much fun. Moving on to number 4. The soundtrack to countless parental frustrations, flipping heck. This was Mum's domain. It was her go-to, her trusted ally in the daily battle against domestic chaos. You'd hear it echo from the kitchen as she stubbed her toe on the leg of the table for the 1000th time. Flipping heck, a sharp, frustrated sigh that was just on the right side of respectable. It wasn't quite swearing, was it? It was more parental rage, carefully filtered and presented in a polite, family-friendly form. It was the noise of suppressed fury, the verbal equivalent of clenching one's fists but remembering the children are in the room, the perfect pressure valve for a busy mum holding it all together. A calm, dignified piano melody comes in, and at number 5, we have the gentleman's expression of dismay. Dash it all. Oh, this one had a bit of class, didn't it? This was reserved for the kind of man who faced adversity with a stiff upper lip, even if said adversity was utterly trivial. You can just picture it, can't you? A distinguished gentleman, perhaps in a tweed flat cap and a sensible coat, standing at the bar, He's just been handed his pint of bitter, but in a moment of clumsiness, he spills a drop on his shoe. Does he curse? Does he cry out? No, he looks down, gives a disappointed little shake of his head, and mutters with profound dignity, "Dash it all, it's the sound of losing your cool while retaining every last shred of your composure." Utterly, wonderfully British. And finally, at number 6, we have one that sounds like it was invented in a fever dream. But I promise you, it was real. Core blimey trousers. Oh, yes, that existed. This wasn't just an expression of shock. This was shock with a theatrical flourish. Core blimey on its own was a classic, another variation of God blind me, but adding trousers to the end. That was pure, unadulterated British eccentricity. It's a phrase that makes no logical sense whatsoever, and that's precisely why it's so perfect. It's proof that even our mild curses came with a built-in sense of humor, a little wink and a nod. It was shock, but with a bit of rhythm, a bit of style, and a baffling reference to legwear. Magnificent. Now, a quick pause. If your nan or granddad ever shouted "blimey" when a cat brought in a present, or your mum muttered "flipping heck" under her breath for the 10th time in an hour, do give this video a like. It's a small thing, but it really helps other people find Briteco nostalgia and join in with these memories. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe for more warm memories and gentle laughs from the good old days of Britain. It means the world to us. Right then, let's get back to the rest of our list. Right then, let's dive into some glorious British expressions that have sadly faded away, but are still lodged in our memories like a half-forgotten tune from Top of the Pops. These were the words our parents and grandparents used to vent their frustrations, a sort of polite fury that wouldn't curdle the milk. First up, at number 1, we have the absolute classic, Gordon Bennett. Now, this wasn't just a phrase, it was a performance. It was reserved for moments of genuine shock or disbelief. You'd hear it when your dad saw the price of petrol, or when your mum discovered you'd used her best scissors to cut up the garden hose. It was the perfect blend of surprise and exasperation, a verbal gasp that said, "I simply cannot believe what I'm seeing," without resorting to anything stronger. It was the sound of a carefully controlled world being gently rattled. Following closely at number 2 is the beautifully simple crikey. Ah, crikey. It was the all-purpose exclamation for everything from a near miss with a football in the back garden to discovering a particularly large spider in the bath. It had a touch of the theatrical about it, a little bit of drama, but it was harmless. It was the sort of word you could shout in front of your nan without getting a clip round the ear. It managed to convey surprise and mild alarm with a cheerful, almost adventurous spirit. And then, at number 3, we have a phrase that truly paints a picture. Flipping heck. This was the go-to for when things went just a little bit wrong. It wasn't for major disasters, but for those minor, everyday annoyances. Dropping your toast butter side down. Flipping heck. Missing the bus by seconds. Flipping heck. It was the gentler, more family-friendly cousin of a much stronger phrase, allowing you to express your irritation while still keeping things thoroughly decent. It was the sound of mild, British inconvenience. At number 4, we have a real gem, Core Blimey. This one had a bit of a cheeky, Cockney charm to it, even if you were from a sleepy village in the Cotswolds. It was pure, unadulterated surprise. You'd hear it from the market trader when you tried to haggle over the price of apples, or from your granddad when he pulled a winning ticket from his pocket. Core Blimey, look at that. It was an expression of genuine, wide-eyed wonder, a little burst of joyful astonishment that was impossible to say without a twinkle in your eye. Then, at number 5, there's the wonderfully understated sugar, a simple, sweet substitute for a much saltier word. This was the one you mutter under your breath when you stubbed your toe on the leg of the coffee table, or when you realized you'd forgotten to buy milk on the way home. It was a quick, sharp little burst of annoyance, over in a flash. It was the perfect way to acknowledge a mistake without making a fuss, a quiet admission that things hadn't gone to plan before simply getting on with it. And who could forget number 6, the magnificent blinking heck. Much like its cousin, flipping heck, this was a masterpiece of polite frustration. It had a slightly more emphatic, rhythmic quality to it. You could almost hear the rapid blinking of eyes in sheer disbelief. Blinking heck. Have you seen the state of this room? Your mum would say, hands on hips, surveying a landscape of discarded toys and biscuit crumbs. It was the sound of parental patience being tested to its absolute limit, but never quite breaking. Now for number 7, the wonderfully robust Ruddy. This was a word that let you sound genuinely cross, but in a way that still felt proper, almost respectable. "It's ruddy freezing out here," someone would declare, their breath misting in the air, and nobody would be in the slightest bit offended. It added a bit of weight to your complaint. Try sending that in a text message today, and your friends would probably think you time traveled from 1952. It was the perfect term for when you were seriously peeved but still wanted to sound like a decent, upstanding member of the community. Moving on to number 8, we have the fantastically posh "by Jove." This was a favorite among the old school gentlemen, a phrase that conjured images of tweed jackets and perfectly waxed moustaches. It was usually shouted with great enthusiasm during a tense moment in the cricket, or perhaps murmured with quiet satisfaction when the tea was brewed to absolute perfection. "By Jove, that's a splendid shot." It was the sound of pure unadulterated upper-class excitement, a little eruption of joy from a world of stiff upper lips. Then, at number 9, there's the delightful "what the Dickens." No, this had absolutely nothing to do with Charles Dickens. It was simply a wonderfully polite way of saying, "What on earth is going on?" without running the risk of upsetting the vicar. It was a phrase so mild, so inoffensive, you could probably say it during a church service and no one would so much as bat an eyelid. It was the perfect expression for moments of utter confusion, when you were faced with a situation so baffling. All you could do was question the very fabric of reality, but you know nicely. At number 10, we have a word that sounds truly ancient. Zounds. This one has a dramatic history, originally being a contraction of God's wounds, but by the time the 1960s rolled around, it had lost all its shocking power and simply meant something akin to good grief. It was dramatic, yes, but certainly not rude. It was the perfect theatrical cry for when your toast landed butter side down on the kitchen floor, a moment of minor tragedy that deserved a little bit of historical flair. And finally, at number 11, we arrive at the gold standard of polite rage. Blast it. This was the ultimate expression of frustration, the king of courteous cursing. It was used for all manner of domestic disasters: the burnt toast that set the smoke alarm off, the flat tire on the way to a wedding, or that heart-sinking moment when the telly packed up just as the football highlights were about to start. Blast it. You'd cry, a single, powerful word that contained all your disappointment and anger, neatly packaged and delivered without a hint of vulgarity. And there you have it, 11 splendid British swear words that somehow managed to sound angry, funny, and utterly polite all at the same time. They didn't need for letters to make their point. All they needed was a little bit of wit, a change in tone, and perfect timing. We may have lost many of these phrases to the mists of time, but they serve as a warm reminder of a Britain that knew how to keep its cool, a place where you could face a crisis with dignity, even when the kettle had broken for the 3rd time that week. They are echoes of a gentler, perhaps more eloquent, era of frustration. If this little trip down memory lane brought a smile to your face or reminded you of someone special, do tap that like button, subscribe for more nostalgic journeys, and share this with someone who still unironically says "quirky" or "quirky." Let us keep our wonderful old British charm alive and keeping one glorious word at a time. Thanks for watching, and as always, cheers, you lovely lot.